Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into episode 15 of Modern Warzone Weekly podcast. I'm GrandmasterGojj. This is my man, Dirty Doug Dagnabbit, otherwise known as Modern Warzone. And today we have a very special guest as we discuss Warzone Pacific, Caldera. It's like 6 days away, as well as some Vanguard things along the way. So Doug, let's give a formal introduction to our guest.
Yeah, today we have one of the biggest guests we've had on the podcast so far. We've had True Game Data, we've had GOJJ. We pretty much have had the whole stat crew minus Drifter. And now we got none other than the Xclusive Ace himself. He's been a YouTuber for quite a long time. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos if you keep up with Warzone, which I expect you to if you're listening to this podcast. So everybody make sure to give him a warm welcome. If you haven't followed him on Twitter yet or subscribed to his YouTube, be sure to do so. Ace, thank you for coming on today's podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Doug kind of gave you a light intro, but Ace, we want to give you a chance to kind of just tell everybody before we get into some questions. We're going to talk about Vanguard, we're going to talk about everything, but just kind of give us an intro of like, hey, who are you, what you've been doing on the YouTube, kind of what's your whole thing. Some people might not know you. I feel like most do, but some people might not.
Yeah, so I'm basically just the breakdown guy. I dive into custom games. I spend 99% of my time in custom games in Call of Duty, just figuring out how all the mechanics work, how all the guns work, every attachment that's involved with that as well. I've got a really heavy focus on gun guides and just building like the absolute optimized setups for the game. And yeah, that's basically what I do. Outside of that, do a little bit of live streaming, but yeah, the primary focus is YouTube and just diving into the stats.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is a very needed thing in Call of Duty. We talk about this on GOJJ episode, True Game Data episode, and everybody else that runs stats and information. It's like, this is what people want to know in Call of Duty. They're always looking for a leg up. They're always looking for the information that will give them an opportunity to potentially play better, and stats and data is always a huge piece of that. So you are extremely valuable to the community. But Doug, I know you had some quick fire questions we wanted to throw at Xclusive Ace to start, and then we're going to get into our topics for today.
Yeah, I did. But I also wanted to mention to Ace, one thing that I personally have come to respect a lot out of your content as compared to other stat guys, like True Game Data does a great job as well of making his stuff visually appealing. GOJJ does a great job of breaking things down very quickly. But one thing that Xclusive Ace does that helped me the first time I watched any of his videos is he makes some of the best graphics to break down gun ranges, their effective damage range, all that type of stuff. And he puts, it seems to me like he does most of that stuff himself. And it's not very easy. I've tried to make graphics like that before. So just wanted to let you know again, man, you're a very respected and appreciated part of the community. And those little extra things you do to make information more digestible and consumable by the general public who plays Warzone, it goes a long way. So do appreciate that.
Oh, thanks for the kind words. I'm glad you noticed those little extra details.
Yeah, no problem. I've screenshotted quite a bit of them and made tweets about them, so I have to. So here we go. We're going to move on into some rapid fire questions. So I'm just going to ask you, I only listed 3 before we started, but there's going to be a 4th one as well. I'm going to ask you these questions just as a bit of an icebreaker, and I want you to answer them with the first thing that comes to mind, whether it's your true answer or not. So first question, you ready?
Yep.
What's your favorite Call of Duty of all time?
Black Ops 2.
Ooh, okay. I like that one. Yeah. Okay, what is your favorite weapon in Call of Duty of all time?
It's kind of tricky because I like variety. I like branching out a lot, but like first thing that popped into my head was the 5.7 from Black Ops 2.
Ooh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to use that as like my top primary. Loved it.
And then my next question is, what is your worst Call of Duty or your least like Call of Duty? I think I know this answer.
Modern Warfare 2019.
There we go.
Okay. Stir in the pot.
And then last question, what got you into content creation? Like, what got you started on this whole thing? And like, how is it different now from when you started?
So back in the day, I used to watch guys like T Martin. I didn't even know who Drifter was at the time, but mainly like T Martin and other tip guys kind of like that. And I just felt like they did a pretty good job, but there was room for some more detailed breakdowns. And so I just started doing it as a hobby for fun and mainly to improve my like public speaking and everything. And it sort of just took off from there and never looked back. It just kept pushing forward. And yeah, that's pretty much it. How's it changed though? A lot more competitive. There's a lot more competition. You've got to be super fast with things now, and also yes, it's still try and do like the best at it. Whereas before, you could kind of throw anything out there, and people would watch because nobody else was doing it. So, yeah, a lot more competition.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that is it's not only more competition in the YouTube space. I mean, it's more competitive in the video game world, period. If you're going to play a game these days. Um, I appreciate you answering all those questions, man. You honestly surprised me with the 5-7 answer. I was not expecting that.
I love it.
Well, we are here to discuss a couple different things. Of course, the big thing on everybody's minds right now is Warzone Pacific, Caldera map, all the POIs. We'll talk about all that. We might even walk through some patch notes. But while we have you here, Xclusive Ace, I wanted to get kind of your Doug and I kind of just share opinions. We share some stats and data around here as well, but we share a lot of opinions, and we both are very opinionated people. And we would love to hear your opinion in particular about these first few weeks of Vanguard. Just what do you think about the game? What do you think about the community kind of outcry about it, or less of an outcry than other games? Like, what do you think about all the stir that's been happening up on the social medias about this game?
There's a lot going on this year. So I'm actually having a good time with the game. I think, especially once I figured out forward intel with the terrible spawns, forward intel is great for figuring all that out. That really changed the game for me, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. It's definitely got its issues, got a lot of bugs that need to be worked out, especially that dead drop glitch, so people can get like infinite streaks. That's really frustrating. Yeah. But overall, like, I'm loving the amount of content that they launched with, tons and tons of content. There's a few maps that I feel like I've only played a small handful of times, which is awesome. But yeah, like, I don't know. I'm having a great time with it. I understand a lot of the complaints surrounding it, and I hope it gets better. But I'm actually a little bit surprised that people aren't enjoying it more than they seem to be, like, based on what I'm seeing online. That's kind of just my initial thoughts of it, at least.
Sure.
I definitely agree with that. It was shocking to me when the game first came out how overwhelmingly positive the feedback was from all different aspects of the community, from competitive to casual, because most of like the leaks and information before this game came out were saying it was going to be a dumpster fire, yada yada yada. Battlefield 2042 was going to kill this year's COD. That didn't happen. But honestly, I do think this is one of the better like COD multiplayers we've had in a long time, and that's something that I wanted to talk to you about today. There's a lot of different things that are souring it for certain people, whether it be shotguns, whether it be the mortar barrage spam, the dead drop glitch. I mean, granted, I am somebody who people would say has been shilling for this game. I even said in the first week that it came out that it's potentially one of my top 5 CODs, multiplayer wise at least. But in the last, I think about like 10 days or so, Ace, I've seen exactly what you're saying, to where it's just completely devolved into just trashing on the game online. And I still think that the core experience is fun, but I do think that the smaller bugs are starting to add up. Like the camo's not working correctly still. We haven't had an ability to choose hardcore playlist until they just added Ship House hardcore. There's just a lot of little things I think are adding up and that are causing people to look down upon the game, because everybody's looking forward to Warzone Pacific now. Interestingly, I'd like to wonder from GOJJ, who hasn't spent as much time on it, what have you seen on the timeline about this game the past couple weeks?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about this multiple times, and I just, I saw somebody say this in the chat just a second ago too. I feel like it's more often that people will go to social media to complain than to praise something, right? That's pretty obvious. And so although it might be somewhat of a vocal minority, the social media space is very vocal, and the social media space is what games and development companies and all of that good stuff should be, or developers should be targeting, because the more the game is talked about, the more chances of people seeing it and thinking about it, and the more eyes are on the game. And so although the vocal minority has had some issues on the timeline, I think in a general sense, especially compared to the last couple CODs, it's been fairly positive. I mean, like you said, people are going to harp about the glitches quite often because it can ruin their gaming experience. But if anything, the biggest negativity that I've seen is in regards to the CDL, which is a whole nother conversation, and the Challengers League. And that kind of stemmed back to some issues with the like diffuse glitch that was happening, where it like showed you when somebody was diffusing, and like all of those good things that were ruining all of the tournaments that were going on the last few weeks. I mean, if we look back at all the events that have happened in the last month of Vanguard, I mean, Activision has quite literally funded about almost $1 million worth of prize pools in Vanguard tournaments already, which is crazy to think about with it being out only a month, but it makes sense from an advertiser standpoint. So there's been a lot more negativity towards like the CDL and Challengers League and like what competitive COD will look like than maybe just the casual player's perspective, if that makes sense.
Definitely agree. I think that's like the biggest turning point I've seen is that all of the pros that were talking well about the game have now turned to saying things that aren't going to get them fined, but aren't putting the game in a good light either. And I mean, they live a completely different life than any of us listening to this podcast or even like Ace. I mean, we eat, breathe, sleep Call of Duty, but these guys legitimately like 16 hours a day of grinding with certain specific loadouts on certain maps. They find out what the real issues are with those maps in like comp play more than anything. I think more than anything, something that is causing people to not enjoy the core multiplayer experience of this game is the combat pacing, because right now everybody is trying to grind their weapons to max level as fast as possible, which means you're probably going into blitz or you're spamming ship house, and everybody knows that's like beating your head against a wall repeatedly. I mean, but it's the most efficient way to do things besides the zombies method we discovered. But I just think that we're in that early stage, and I think every single year this happens, the current COD is talked down upon by the community. I think by next year, when the next COD comes out, which would be Treyarch's, I do think that this game will be looked back upon as a great multiplayer title.
So
what do you think,
I guess
Ace?
I was gonna say the question for Ace, in my opinion, is like based on your experience of the last few Call of Duties and just several Call of Duties in a row. I mean, what is this kind of, whether it's the public outcry about it or kind of conversations around it or just the game in general, what is this game most similar to in the kind of COD history?
Like the best thing I can think of is kind of a combination of Modern Warfare 2019 and COD World War II, which would make sense. Like that's Sledgehammer's most recent title. The setting is very similar as well, but even gameplay wise, I feel like it's a blend of the two. I like that they did away with a lot of the issues with Modern Warfare, at least a lot of the issues I had. So that's why I'm enjoying it quite a bit, actually, because I like the engine. I like the feel of the movement and everything. There's just a bunch of other issues I didn't like with Modern Warfare that just aren't showing up here in Vanguard, and I'm enjoying that quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that I think, and here's the next question, and kind of like ties into all the questions we've had. I know you had mentioned like beforehand when we were kind of having some conversations about the game, why you thought some things were not going as well. But what do you think about the World War II setting? Do you think it's been overplayed? Do you think people are just tired of it? Like, why do you think this is such a big, like, hot button topic for so many people? Because when they first announced this game was happening and they said it was World War II, everybody lost their minds.
Yeah, no, I think the World War II setting's really holding them back this year. That I was pretty disappointed when I first heard that. Like, I care about gameplay over everything, but I just feel like the World War II setting is overplayed, and it also limits a lot of the creativity if they want to keep things authentic, which they obviously haven't been doing, which then makes a lot of the really hardcore World War II fans really angry. So that kind of pushes them away, while also pushing the people away that didn't want to see World War II to begin with. And it just hasn't been going well because of that.
Yeah, I said this before this game came out, and I think that it's something that can't be changed. Obviously, when people see World War II, they're going to have a negative connotation to it. But generally, when you're talking about a time period, it's really just the skin of the game, especially with the way that it's going with Vanguard. It's like it's not historically accurate at all. Like, they're doing almost every single implementation of things in the game that aren't historically accurate are there to improve the gameplay from what would be a traditional World War II shooter. But like you said, I think that's one of those things that is just too little too late. My final question about Vanguard, we may have one more topic we'll cover on it, is we saw a report that UK launch sales for the week, or the UK launch week sales were down by 40% physically, and then I do believe there was another report about the digital down spike of COD, and that is compared to Cold War. And Cold War sold almost as well as Modern Warfare, if I'm remembering correctly, by the end of this period cycle. I don't know so much about launch week, but in your opinion, Ace, what do you think are holding sales down? And do you think that when Warzone Pacific launches and people realize that they have 40 guns to level up, do you think it will spike?
I think there definitely is going to be a bit of a spike from the people that realize how much grinding they're going to have to do. I guess it depends on what they do with like plunder or whatever style of mode they're going to be bringing with the Pacific. If that's going to be good for grinding guns, Probably not though, because they're going to want to try and increase sales of Vanguard. Yeah, no, I've been seeing it myself with the views as well on YouTube. Like, content is not doing that great with Vanguard multiplayer. So it really just, it doesn't seem to be doing well there. And I hope there's going to be a bit of a turnaround on that with the Pacific update. But then again, I think a lot of people that have been grinding multiplayer pretty hard, they're just going to be transitioning over to Warzone again. And yeah, they've just been grinding their guns for the past month or so.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about, was like content side. I know there's been a lot of conversations about what content is usually made on multiplayer and what it'll look like this year, and especially with the conversation about the CDL, it's always gone back to Warzone. Is Warzone taking away from the game? Is Warzone adding to overall Call of Duty? Is Warzone killing the CDL? Is Warzone killing the multiplayer scene? Like, what I know we were talking about how like you don't really dive that deep into Warzone and haven't played Warzone as much recently, but like in comparison, what do you think Warzone? I know Warzone has done some good things. I think we can all agree, with that, and how Warzone's continued to expand the overall general populace of people that play Call of Duty, because of how like widespread it's become. But like, in your opinion, Ace, like, what do you think about battle royales, and what do you think about Warzone in particular in the way that it's kind of translating to these casual players of Call of Duty?
Yeah, so I really loved Warzone for the first, I would say, like 6 or 8 months of it being launched. I loved it. I was so happy for like a fresh, exciting experience. But yeah, it has gotten to the point where I feel like it has been taking a lot away from the multiplayer side of things. It seems like the devs just either aren't caring as much about the multiplayer side because they're just thinking about Warzone, or they're actively putting things into multiplayer in order to make that transition a lot easier between Warzone and multiplayer. And I think that holds the multiplayer back as well. So yeah, I want to see more focus, again, a return of focus on the multiplayer side of things, while still obviously pushing Warzone forward. But it's tricky to do when you're trying to keep them integrated as well. And on the business side of things, like, I get most of the decisions they're making. It's just really frustrating as like a really dedicated player. I would much rather be playing multiplayer than Warzone, but as a content creator, it looks like I'm gonna have to move over to Warzone again, even though I don't want to, because that's what's getting supported the most, it seems, and that's where they're actually, at least for the most part, listening to fans. Not with everything, but I'm sure we'll get into a lot of those things in a bit when we talk about Warzone.
Gosh,
yeah, for sure.
It's such an interesting conversation. I feel like we could sit here and talk for like an hour and a half about like what has Warzone done for Call of Duty, what has it not done, because it is really interesting to think about what the overall Call of Duty general casual players perspective is on multiplayer versus Warzone or versus battle royales, because I know a lot of people say like battle royales are the like new age of gaming. This is what everybody wants. It's going to be around for a long time. I guess the question is like for both of you guys, whoever wants to speak first, maybe Doug, take this one and then we can send it to Ace. Like, what do you guys think, like, the longevity, this is kind of off track here, off notes, but what do you think the longevity of battle royales will be? Do you think it's going to be around for a really, really long time? Do you think it is revolutionizing the gaming space still, or is this kind of the tail end of a trend and something else you think will take over?
I've been trying to think about this on my own time and like kind of try to divide, like, I mean, it's pretty much my business. My business is Warzone, so I need to keep track of how well battle royales are doing. We're kind of, I can't remember how long ago it was when I was watching Dr. Disrespect play H1Z1 and begging that we get a console battle royale. The first one was Fortnite, by the way. Most people don't know that. It was originally a PvE game, and then they made it the battle royale, and then it became what it is today. I think that the battle royale, when they first launched Warzone, it was a 5-year plan. I think that 5-year plan has been extended since then to at least another 5 years. I don't see Battle Royale going anywhere until we come up with some type of a major mode where there's 100+ players. And I think the big thing that draws people in about Battle Royale, not only is it's free to play, but that is something you can go and brag to your friends about. Like, I used to work at Arby's and fast food places. And I had all of these people I knew had played video games, right, that I was working with, and they never really talked about video games at work. And then they got into Fortnite, and then they got into Warzone, and then they got into this, and they got into that. And then every day at work, they would come and show me a clip of them winning a game or of them doing this or doing that. And the real thing about a battle royale is the fact that there's a story to every game. From start to finish, there is a storyline that develops. You go down, you go to the gulag, you come back. We need some type of a game mode that can tell a story like that. And I do think that the transition is beginning to happen, About like 9 months ago, I tweeted "Escape from Tarkov" and I was referring to Warzone. And I deleted the tweet afterwards because I wasn't 100% about it. But now we're getting more information talking about something like that happening. And I do believe that the whole Escape from Tarkov / Hazard Zone genre is the next step of Battle Royale. There's a story that can be told. There's high stakes every game. Something is always on the line. But I think we're still a long way away from that being the mainstream thing.
What do you think, Ace?
Yeah, actually, I agree with that completely. I've been thinking about that as well. I think Battle Royale, as it is right now, is probably going to need some sort of evolution over the next couple years. And I think one of the biggest points of evolution is how do you carry that over across multiple games? So, like, a Battle Royale game is its own one thing. Like, you play through that game. Once that game's over, like, that's the end of it. Whereas Tarkov, the nice thing about that is you're playing long term, you're grinding long term, and doing something in one game that can help carry over to the next match, or it can just help buff up your overall profile. And we're not really seeing that too much with Warzone. It's one of the things that I got burnt out with Warzone because I just felt like I was going through the motions game after game after game with nothing really to show for it at the end of the day, except maybe the win count starts increasing and you keep track of your wins. I think we need like loot or something that we can pull out and have on our account, and we can build up our account more like RPG style than just have it game to game.
So glad you said RPG style, because I think that's the element that they've been wanting to add to Battle Royale for a while, but it becomes a real balancing issue because you don't want the power creep and then new players not able to play against the top level players, which is kind of an issue Escape from Tarkov has. But it's very rewarding to go out and win some games and then take what you gained from those games into the following one. I think that is the next step for Battle Royale. And the most recent like improvements we've had on BR have just been respawns. Now we have a loadout system in Warzone that I'm sure you'll probably see other BR games try to, build upon. Other than that, there's really not been that much innovation.
No.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think this is a great segue to something that I was going to wait for way later. But I think when we're having a conversation about Battle Royales and the longevity of Battle Royales, I promise we'll get into Warzone and Pacific and POIs and stuff. We'll talk about all of that. But for now, while we're having this, I think it's a really valuable and interesting conversation about the future of the Battle Royale category. I guess the next question comes to a head of like, okay, if Warzone feels like you're going through the motions, and yes, there's stakes, yes, there's a story, I mean, we got to have the conversation about a ranked mode, right? I think that's something that a lot of Battle Royales have implemented that kind of gets that fix of like, okay, every game I'm playing feels like I'm doing something, I'm achieving something. It almost feels like in Warzone when you're playing, if you're not going for some sort of like leaderboard records or anything like that, like I'm thinking about like OP Marked or Iron or like even like Bonk or somebody like that, if you're not doing that, the only thing to be gained along the way is like content. But if you're not a content creator or you don't care about throwing clips on the timeline or anything like that, it gets really repetitive really fast, right? And so a ranked mode offers you this kind of opportunity to grind through the ranks where every game feels valuable. I would love to hear you guys' takes. Let's start with Ace. Your guys' takes on ranked mode in Warzone in particular, and then of course, Ace, if you want to talk about multiplayer and what it would look like to implement a real ranked mode into multiplayer as well, I mean, we can have that conversation.
Okay, yeah, let's start it with Warzone at least. I think it's absolutely necessary within the next year that they bring a ranked mode in, because they've already lost a lot of the players, I think, over the past year. People just kind of burning out on Warzone in general. A lot of them will come back with the new map, but how long is that going to last? I don't think it's going to last super long for a lot of people. They're going to be really excited and hyped about it for a couple months maybe, and then is it going to start to taper off again? And ranked mode is a great way to keep that going, give people something to work toward long term and grind toward. And also that would pull a lot of the really higher tier players out of the regular sort of public matching playlists. And I think that would help make it a little more casual in game. I realize like there's SBMM, but that only goes so far. And I think one of the biggest issues and one of the things that started turning me away is I didn't want to play Warzone every single day. I wanted to play it maybe once or twice a week at most. But when I was doing that, since I have pretty decent stats and stuff, when I hop in, I'm just getting annihilated by people that are way, way better than me. I'm just trying to get warmed up and get my thumbs working again. And I just couldn't compete. So I just felt like I was wasting my time and running into a wall. And I think rank mode is a great opportunity to pull a lot of those players out, give them something else to work toward, as long as there's like really solid rewards for that,
Right.
and a lot of encouragement to actually go into a ranked mode. I think it's absolutely necessary for Warzone in the future.
I 100% agree, and it has to happen within the next year. I also agree with your timeline of when it needs to happen. Hopefully, it'll be before then, which I think it will. But that this whole talk leads back to what we were just talking about with like the escape from Tarkov mechanics. While you may not be going in with better loot or taking better loot out with you, every single time you win a ranked game in a game like Apex, for instance, once you move past a certain rank, I can't remember where it was. I remember I used to play, I got to Diamond in like season whatever it was they launched ranked. But after a certain threshold of rank, they take the training wheels off. Every time you queue up, you're basically gambling some of your ELO, 15 or so, it tells you. And you know what you have to do when you get in that game to make sure you make at least that number of ELO back, so you are at least neutral, and what you have to do to increase. That is the same principle we were just speaking about with like an RPG or like Escape from Tarkov mechanics, to where there's always something at stake, there's always something to be gained, and there's always something that could be lost if you don't take it seriously the next game. I think that it has to be done properly with the ELO. I think that they need to make sure that whenever they do launch it, I do believe Iron Trials was like a tester mode for it to see if they wanted to increase health and all to make it more competitive. I just think that they really need to be in tune with the competitive community whenever they do launch it. Make sure they keep a constant thing of communication, because it doesn't matter how many years they look at it. We won't know how it really performs and functions until we're in there ourselves, giving them feedback about how we feel about it. But I agree with Ace's timeline. I think we bare minimum have to have it within the year, or else people are going to get up out of here. Other than that, I do think that I think it's closer than a lot of people think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll ditto that as well. That it's probably closer than we think. We know, especially if we've been watching Vanguard and all the changes that they've been trying to make along the way, that they are listening. And so, if they are listening and they haven't heard people yell to the rooftops for the last 18 months about having a ranked mode in this game, like, you know, they're not dumb, y'all. They know that this is something that the community wants. The question is implementation and how long it'll take to actually implement it. And I think everything that you guys said was perfect. I think most people in the community agree that Apex ranked mode and the transparency that Apex ranked mode offers with the ELO or MMR or whatever you guys want to call it is something that everybody enjoys. But not everyone said, right, when ranked mode drops, this is working as intended. There was a lot of complaints. There was a lot of things that they wanted to tweak. I know Apex has tweaked it along the way with certain point values and things like that. So it's never going to release perfectly, but let's get it out there and let's get the ranked kind of players grinding the game so that they can give some more feedback, and then we can adjust it. I doubt, I mean, I'd put like a 1% chance that's going to actually drop with the new map, but it's got to be dropping, like you guys said, within the next year. I would argue it's probably within the probably before Q2 is over of 2022 is when we'll see a ranked mode. And we'll jump to multiplayer in a second, but I want to add on to this. This is an interesting question I was posed not too long ago. Do you think there'll be if they add a ranked mode, do you think there'll be two separate ranked playlists for Rebirth and not for Danska, Caldera? Or do you think it'll just be Caldera? Do you think they'll do the Apex type, you know, vibes where they rotate different maps per season? Like, what do you guys think about that whole concept, specifically with Rebirth involved?
You want to go first? Or you want me to? Yeah, you go ahead, Ace.
Yeah, I don't know how in touch I am with this. I would think they would just do it on Caldera and that would be it. But I really don't know. I don't know what people want either. And yeah, if they were to have that, I think the ranks would have to be separated between the maps.
Right.
Because like a Rebirth rank probably wouldn't be equal to a Caldera rank, like if you're in the same ranking league. So yeah, I don't really know though. I don't think I'm in touch enough to really share much of an opinion on that.
Fair enough. Doug, what do you think?
I absolutely do not think that Rebirth deserves or needs a I don't think it needs a ranked mode, because if you do play Rebirth a lot, like Bear Pig Central, somebody I watch a lot of, the better you get at it and the more SPMM affects you, the way to win a game of Rebirth is no longer to play aggressive, but to hold hands. And that would be exactly what competitive would turn into in that. And I just don't think that people would really enjoy that. I do think that it would be fine if they had it, but I wouldn't want them to focus their development time or resources on Ranked Rebirth. I think that they need to focus it on the new Caldera map.
Yeah.
The new map is designed beautifully. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and I'm going to get some of Ace's thoughts on that for sure. But I do think that they need to focus it specifically on Caldera, and they maybe they might even have to have, like, you know, certain, well, when things get out of meta, when the meta becomes abusive, like OP meta, that they're going to have to be able to take a step back and look at the overall health and feedback of their community, and they're going to have to start just vaulting stuff in the ranked playlist until they get it right. In my opinion, if they don't do that, they're going to have a real problem.
There's so many there's so many question marks on how ranked would work. Would it be a different game mode? Would it just be play normal Warzone, kind of like Apex is, right? There's no real major limitations with ranked. It's just you play the game. And I think, Ace, you brought this point up earlier too, is like one of the major benefits of ranked is that SBMM will be much less of a complaint in theory, right? A lot of the really competitive players will be playing ranked, and so if you want a more casual experience, just don't play ranked, and you have less of a likelihood of running against, you know, some sweats and things like that. But let's spin this whole conversation back to multiplayer in kind of Ace's professional opinion. I mean, do you think there's a place for ranked multiplayer as well? Could that kind of bring back some vibrance to the multiplayer scene? I mean, I'm thinking of specifically like Halo right now. Doug and I have been playing quite a bit of Halo. I mean, I've been probably playing the most out of the three of us, if not, you know, more than both of you guys combined. But, you know, the ranked mode in Halo in multiplayer feels very fun and like grindy, and like there's a lot of issues with it. But do you think there's something that they could do in multiplayer with Vanguard?
I think I'm getting more and more pessimistic when it comes to ranked play and multiplayer. It seems like every year they try it, and they screw little things up here or there where it just seems so obvious to the community, but they just don't do it right. Like the biggest thing I'm really hoping for Vanguard's rank play is an actual elo score like we saw in COD World War II. That's one of the whole reasons I just didn't play Cold War's ranked system. I remember I played my placement matches, dominated every single one of them, like 3 KD, top of the leaderboard, won every game, and I was put in like the bottom 50% of players. And there was no transparency, there was no reasoning behind that. So I just thought to myself, like, I'm never playing that again. That's stupid. So yeah, they need a lot more transparency. That's a huge thing. And outside of that, I don't really know, because I don't know, no matter what they do, I just feel like they're going to screw something up with it somewhere. It just doesn't go well for COD.
I believe the general consensus last year was that league play was terrible. Am I wrong in that, Ace? Did you probably spent more time trying it than I did?
Oh no, I played 7 games of it and never played it again.
I think that Ace hit the nail on the head a lot right there. One of the best games I've played that has a ranked mode is Rocket League. And one of the reasons that its ranked mode is so good, and the same thing with Halo right now, once you get to a certain rank, you can start to see your ELO. Like, you see how much you lose per game, you see how much you gain per game. They have websites that'll show you if you're really hardcore into it. But sometimes there's game modes that have ranked modes, such as I used to play Overwatch, or I used to play and Rocket League, even in the lower leagues, has this issue to where you just don't know what you're gaining and what you're losing. Like, you'll pop off one game and gain 3 points. You lose by 1 the next game, leading your team and like carrying an entire team on your back, and then you lose like an entire division rank or something like that, like 50 ELO, and then you're just left there scratching your head, like, why am I even playing the game? What is the point of playing the game? I have no idea what I'm gaining. I have no idea what I'm losing. I feel like I'm moving backwards. I do agree that the ELO should be transparent. Now, that's a big ask for Activision and COD, especially with our current SBMM system. This would affect SBMM a good bit. But for them to put an actual number on it, I think would be a huge get. I don't think Halo currently doesn't put a number on your rank until you hit Onyx. Right. And then you can see how much you're moving up or down to compare yourself to the top players in the world. Rocket League's kind of like that as well. I really, really would hope that they would keep full transparency, especially when it first launches, and let us know what we need to do to move up. What are some of the criteria based around this ELO? I hate that everything's like shrouded in mystery.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I go back to Apex, right? And I don't know if there's like copyrights or, there's a lot of things I probably don't understand, but like Apex, I feel like, has done it the most right? Like, you can see numbers, you can see what you're wagering every round, you can see what each kill gives you. Like, it's pretty easy math, and it is not like, even for somebody that doesn't really understand that stuff very often, like you can just look at it and understand what's going on when you're playing, right? And I think even with Halo, like you know, if you slay out and lose a game, you might not lose any. You might win a game handily, but if you're bottom of, you know, your team, you might still lose points based on the way the ranking system works. And like, that's all good and fine, but the more transparency, the better, I would say, and probably the better received as well. The only issue that comes with that is like, if they do a poor job, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like if it's transparent, but they don't do a great job of putting it together, everybody's gonna be like, what the heck are these numbers and why are they what they are? Like, there's gonna be a lot of outcry on it. But again, the way games are being pushed right now, and I would actually love to hear your perspective on this, Ace, because the way games are being created right now, it's almost like everything's being pushed out as a beta test, and then the community decides what needs to be changed. Like Doug and I were discussing, I don't remember what it was, like the diffuse bug. Like we were like, that could have been like a feature that they just labeled as a bug because everybody was freaking out about it. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things about the way the games are put out now compared to how they used to be that is so different because of how prolific the internet and social media is. But I guess like this is kind of one of our last questions on this topic, but just from your experience, all of Call of Duty's you've played, you know, been a part of from the content creator side and everything like that. And, you know, what do you think about the current way, you know, games like Vanguard are being put out versus games like, you know, Halo are being put out in beta and Battlefield putting out in beta and then full releasing? Like, what do you think about the way games are released now and the way that developers actually interact with the community versus how it used to be back when maybe like World War II dropped or something like that?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. I think on one end, it's kind of a good thing that we have that, because as long as they actually pay attention and listen to the community and get changes happening quickly, I'd rather do that than have them 100% commit to something and then it's just not going to change. Sure. So if it launches a certain way, that's just the way it's going to launch. Another thing, I think gamers have become a lot more picky with what they're looking for over the years. If you look back to some of the old Call of Duty games, if they launched in the state that they launched in back then, the outcry would be immense. Like it would be absolutely crazy, probably more than what we're seeing now.
Right.
But I think a lot of people forget about that. Or back in the day, we were just more forgiving of that because we didn't know any different. We didn't know any better. That's just how games were. You buy what you buy, and yeah, they might make a few improvements and fix some bugs, but what you get is what you're generally going to be getting for the rest of the year, minus some content that they're going to be adding. So yeah, it's tricky, but I think it is the right direction as long as they streamline the process a little bit better. And I would prefer to see better methods of getting feedback as well. I still think in-game surveys would be a huge step in the right direction, where you could just have people vote on options and they just pop up randomly when you boot up the game or something like that. I don't know, getting some feedback in that sense I think would be huge, and it would also help the player base as well to feel better about things in general if they feel like they have more of a voice in that and that the devs are actively listening, because that's where things kind of fall apart right now. Is a lot of times we just don't feel like we're being heard, or there's just not enough communication on like, when is this actually going to be fixed? What's happening? Yeah. I still don't know if they've officially acknowledged the dead drop glitch yet in Vanguard. I don't think they've officially acknowledged it yet. And that's something we've been living with for a couple weeks now. So yeah, I don't know.
Definitely agree with Ace there. Yeah. That's a big issue, is that the communication is just, it's tough right now, especially with, I'm not giving them any excuses or anything, but everything going on PR wise for them, they're all being very careful about what they do and don't say. Everybody in our chat has been spamming that we ask about an FOV slider. We'll talk about it in a little bit. They're just to let you know, there's still no confirmation about one, and we probably won't get one until the day before or the day of the map. It's just one of those things. But I think that they've been improving their communication to a degree. But I also agree with what Ace is saying with in-game surveys. I think that the more accessibility that the casual gamer has to provide their feedback in-game. So right now they're doing a better job of, like in Modern Warfare 19 and in Warzone up until recently, they had a patch notes tab. Anytime you open the game, you could go look. Almost never updated. Almost never. Now the past 2 patch notes that we've gotten have been updated in game, and I had to go in game and take a screenshot of them before they were ever tweeted about or anything like that. They have these Trello boards, which even me, this is my job. I don't go and check those Trello boards enough, so I know a casual doesn't even know they exist.
Sure.
I would like to see more opportunities for people who just own and play the game to give their feedback on the game, because anybody who goes on social media is immediately going to be tainted by the overwhelming negativity of any game. Almost any game. You go to any video game that's popular subreddit, their largest communities, and you go look at any of their replies, and you're just going to see complaints, because nobody who's enjoying a game is going on the internet to tell you they're enjoying the game because they're playing it. So
exactly.
I would really appreciate if we had more available things in game. I feel like I got asked about a survey one time in Vanguard, but I could be wrong. But I'm glad you brought that up, Ace. That's a perspective I've never thought about. Like, that's a real way to get genuine feedback and not just trolls spamming a Google form link and clicking, I hate this game. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the question becomes, do you get a bunch of trolls that are casual gamers that get killed by a cheater one time and then they spam the in-game, like, you know, feedback system that they provide? I don't know. You know, I from Activision side or from Raven Software side or whoever, Sledgehammer, like, from their side, do you think they'd be thinking, oh, let's give the casual players more of a voice? Or would they be thinking, if we give the casual players, like, in-game more of a voice? I say casual meaning, like, you're not on content creation, you're not on, you know, social media and all that stuff. You might be a demon at the game. That's not like a slight at you. But, like, would it be more of like a spam thing that we basically wouldn't be able to check with the amount of players that actually play the game? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of, like, perhaps multiple choice when they're looking at certain mechanics or something like that. They could just give you a multiple choice, not necessarily a form for you to fill out and type out or anything.
Yeah.
So that could at least help guide some decisions with the gameplay and gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Definitely agree in that. Well, let's slide on to our next topic. I think we've covered a good bit about, you know, what we think the multiplayer ranks could be, or what our concerns with are. We talked about the Warzone ranked and what we think some of our concerns with it are and we've clearly made you guys know that we believe this is something that has to happen within the next year for the overall longevity and health of Warzone, at least to please the community, even if it doesn't launch great. I think the community, and I think I speak for them when I say this, are more than willing to help you turn whatever the competitive mode launches at to what we would like it to be and what would be a great experience for everyone. But we did just have the biggest patch note / update that we had seen for Caldera, as Ace's head just kind of moves. That was awkward.
Yeah, don't worry about the YouTube. I'm setting it up for everybody else to take a look at some of the stuff I'll pull up on screen.
But we're going to talk about the biggest changes coming to Warzone Pacific, and we're going to speculate on a few of them that aren't confirmed yet. But first of all, I wanted to just talk about the loadout change and get some of our thoughts on that. So right now, there's a limited time mode in Warzone called Operation Flashback, where the ground loot is Modern Warfare weapons again. All types of different in-game events are happening. But the catch is that you cannot go buy a loadout until the first free loadout drop happens. In normal games of Warzone Battle Royale, that is when the first circle closes with 10 seconds remaining until it finishes closing is when it drops, somewhere within that 10 to 15 second range. I see a lot of people say 13. In that Operation Flashback mode, it's not until the third circle is at that point. But the creative director for Raven Software, Ted Timmy, sorry, I'm not pronouncing your name right, brother. I know you follow me. I feel bad. He went on Twitter to clarify to Swag that it would not be that way. It would be when the first circle closes. So we're talking about maybe 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes that you won't be able to purchase a loadout. And people on the internet were mainly content creators who go for high kill gameplay for their content were pretty upset about this. And they also didn't understand why they would be grinding their guns if you can only use them for a certain period of time. I'd like to go through starting with Ace. What are your opinions on that? What do you think it's going to do to the game?
I've got mixed feelings. I think I kind of want to just see how it plays out, especially with it being first circle instead of third circle in. I think it could be a positive thing overall. It could shift the focus of the early match from just finding money and looting for money and completing those money contracts to potentially just trying to get yourself a decent ground loot gun and kill other players. It could go that direction, maybe not though. It might just make people camp and wait because they don't want to fight with ground loot guns. So they're just going to hold out and hide basically until they can buy their loadout drop. Another big thing is camping buy stations, I'm concerned about that.
Yes.
Because there's going to be a massive rush for buy stations right at the same time. I think it maybe would have been better possibly if you could buy your loadout marker, but you couldn't call it in until that time. So you could at least get to a buy station, buy it, get it ready to go, but you can't use it until it's that time. Perhaps that could be a better option. I don't really know. I basically just want to keep an open mind with it and see how it ends up playing out once I get into it.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the current way the game is played, we'll say like before this gets added into it, right, is that you can buy a loadout as fast as you get the money. So it spreads everybody out when they actually decide to buy a loadout based on encounters at the beginning, how hot you drop, how much money you find, the RNG, right? So you spread it all out. But when you take all of that time that's spread out in the first circle where people buy loadout and you take it all away and you combine all of the people that buy loadouts in the first circle and put them to a point where they have enough money to buy it right as the second circle starts, I see the issue. Like, camping buy stations is going to be a huge strategy. So, like, obviously from my side, right, I am a competitive Warzone commentator. I watch tournaments, like, literally as my job, or I'm on the broadcast breaking down strategies. This is now not only it's already been a strategy, but this is now like the strategy for farming kills. As you get to a point where you're nearing the end of the first circle and you need to buy a loadout, so does everyone else. And so this is an opportunity to get to one of the hottest, buy stations in the game and farm people like crazy, which it sounds really bad and it feels like it would be really bad, but I guess we kind of have to wait and see how it plays,
Yeah, I agree with both your points. I can see why those are causes for concern. In my opinion, I think that this is going to increase the tension in between. Mid game right now is very dead overall. Like, most people who are really good at this game spend the first 10 minutes. They know whether or not they're on world record pace or they're on their PR pace or not, because mid game is dead. And then you get to end game and a lot of kills get picked up. GOJJ and I both cast Warzone tournaments sometimes, and him all the time. And you can see that most of the kills that are gotten within these games are in early game or at end game, and they start getting picked up quickly. So I'd like to see this, because I am all for more mid-game action, and that'll lead us into what we were going to talk about with the map changes. But I would, to be devil's advocate for what you guys are saying about buy station camping. The cool thing is that everybody's allowed to go and buy one at the exact same time that everybody gets a free one. So there's going to be free ones all throughout the map that people have the opportunity to choose to go for, as well as they have the opportunity to choose if they have the money instead of fighting, because there's probably going to be multiple loadouts to drop and you're going to see how many teams are nearby. Instead of going to fight for that, they can buy their loadout, throw it on top of a high ground or something, and stay safe like we do in current Warzone. The other alternative I was going to say is that this allows everybody who is trying to frag out early game to go to a buy station as soon as they get the money and go buy a UAV, and nobody has Ghost. So another way to counteract people camping buy stations is to get to a buy station, buy a UAV, and clear your area. Go take their money of anybody out of your area, defend that buy station, and then you can turn around and be the person camping it. But I think that I would be much more worried about the camping buy stations issue if there wasn't a free loadout dropping for everybody still on the map at that point.
Sure.
I do understand everybody's concerns about it, especially content creators looking for high kill gameplay. But what I will say is that in the beginning, when I was first getting started, we did a bunch of Warzone data mines. Originally, people thought that there was going to be, tier 3 armor, tier 3 helmets. And then whenever it truly came out that there was none of that, you weren't going to be able to loot attachments. It was all loadout based. Everybody was upset and said that this was going to ruin the game before it ever started. So I just want anybody who's listening to this right now to just give it a chance, at least form your own opinion of it. Don't just take what you read on the internet and think that it's going to be bad, because it actually could be overall a good thing for the game.
Yeah, but I think all those points together, I mean, it's really only time will tell. And also, I mean, we've had Warzone, obviously it's a new map, but we've had Warzone for 18 months. Like, there's a bit of surface tension on the way the game is going to be played. Like, it is going to be played the same way it's always been played, besides the fact that you can't buy the loadout. for a little while. We're going to see new strategies start appear. I'm excited to watch those new strategies appear. You'll see a lot of big content creators or big streamers or big competitors create new strategies, not only around the map and jump spots and peaks and all of that good stuff, but also strategies with some of the game changes that we're seeing, such as stopping power being removed, such as dead silence being nerfed, and such as other things that I'm sure they'll add and change going into the future. I mean, let's take a look at the map. Let's talk about the map. The map is different from Verdansk, similar in some ways, which we can talk about, but very different in the way it's laid out. I mean, Ace, have you had a chance to kind of take a look at the map, and what do you think about it? Just kind of general impressions.
Yeah, I've looked at it a little bit. I like the fact that it looks to be a bit more on the open side, and a lot of the smaller buildings, from what we've seen so far at least, don't appear to have like a second floor attic. That's one of the things I really didn't like about Verdansk, is just how many buildings had that second floor attic that is just a magnet for campers. I'd like to see some more movement going on and some more open fights, and I think we're going to be seeing that. There's also appears to be a lot more verticality, which could bring some more interesting gameplay, and especially with it being centralized on the map and it's not just something on the outskirts. So I'm quite optimistic about it, actually, just layout wise, and also just the vibrancy of the colors too. I think that's just going to be so nice to be able to play something that isn't all washed out. And yeah,
absolutely,
Verdansk, basically.
Absolutely. I'm gonna let you go, Gojj, because I have a ton that I'm gonna say, and that I don't think a lot of people have talked about when it comes to this map design. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of conversations we can have about the design. I am wearing, if you are on the YouTube, I am wearing my Pacific shirt today in memorial, or not memorial, in like excitement for the map, I guess. I think as somebody that is really plugged into the Warzone competitive scene, I am very cautiously optimistic on the new map. I like the layout. I think the layout's probably better than Verdansk in terms of POIs, the way they're located, how there's POIs all over the map rather than just specific areas. There's not as much dead space, it feels like, while the map is still about the same size. I'm sure there will be some dead space around the map that will be like, okay, this is, you know, wide open area that we're going to get absolutely annihilated on. I think in terms of some of the hottest drops going forward, I mean, a lot of question marks will be, is Capital the new downtown / the tilted tower / the military base of PUBG / whatever you want to call it? Is that the like main kind of hotspot for loot? And then the question will be, where is going to be the hotspot for dropping? Will it also be Capital, or will it be something more like Airfield, etc.? I mean, we already saw that there's a new ATC tower, right? Didn't we all see that in the trailer?
It's at the airport.
So maybe the airport or the runway is not going to be the place to drop, but overall, I'm cautiously optimistic about the competitive future of the game. There's a lot of water around the inside and outside. I think dogfighting is going to be adding a huge new kind of conversation point for the way competitive plays. What will that look like? How many passengers are in a plane? Is it going to be broken? Is it not going to be broken? I don't know. There's so many question marks in my brain, but it gets me really excited because it's just going to feel fresh, at least for a little while.
All right. I agree with what you're saying. All right. I'm going to go through my main points about the new map that I haven't seen a lot of people discuss, or if they have discussed. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can because it's probably going to be a mouthful. Okay, first of all, the design of this map was done with everything they learned about Warzone throughout its 2 years with Verdansk, okay? So this map was designed to fix all the problems that Verdansk had. Verdansk is probably, and people will look back and say this, one of the best Battle Royale maps, you know, made. It was very good for a long time. It held us over for 2 years and still kept Warzone as one of the top BRs. So no slight to it. But it did have some issues, mainly with verticality, people camping too often, and way too many strong power positions to be able to hold anybody trying to move from cover to cover. The difference in between Verdansk and Caldera, as you can see, is that the majority, there are only 3 regions that don't touch the ocean on this map, E, F, and H. All the rest of them, all of the most notable POIs, or all of the most notable regions, are all around the edge. And the effect that's going to have on Warzone is that people, instead of hot dropping it at Superstore, which is dead center middle of the map, they're probably already in the circle just hunting people from then on out. Most people are going to land on the edges of the map. What that's going to lead to is a naturally better pacing and flow of the game as people move, hopefully the circles are more towards the interior of the map and forcing people to flow in that direction. And also the most height advantageous positions on this map are centralized on the map. So and they have the least amount of loot in them. So you can either choose to be a rat and go camp and not really get a bunch of loot and camp right in the middle of the map and be safe with circles, or you can choose to hot drop on one of the edge zones, and then you're going to have to be fighting against rotations the rest of the game. And I really appreciate the way this map is designed for those reasons. And when you go look at this, there's a total of 15 regions. I went through and counted all those little orange dots you see on there was what they call POIs, which means they have loot in those areas. There's a total of 216. The most populated one is Capital, like GOJJ mentioned. This is at the very bottom of the map. It has 35. 30 of them are in an area that is smaller than any of the other regions. So that place is going to be nuts. I think that it's all spread out evenly and very well done. There's no specific places that you're going to feel you have to go, but you're also going to have more opportunities to choose where you would like to go. And I heard Ace mention, he said he doesn't know, or he feels like this has less buildings than Verdansk did. I tried to get confirmation from some employees on this, but nobody had a direct number for me. But currently Verdansk has 400 plus of these POIs. This map has a total of 216, and people have already done the numbers and everything and shown that this map is about, not counting verticality and topography, just left to right, up and down bisections, is 93% the size of Verdansk. Okay. That doesn't include the massive volcano in the middle of the map you can climb up and all that stuff. So it's theoretically it's about the same size. It has half the number of POIs/buildings, which means it's going to incentivize people to, or not even, it doesn't even have to incentivize. You're not going to have a choice. You're going to be forced to move from cover to cover or get stuck and get pushed by a team. There's so many more open areas. There's not as many objective opportunities for people to camp in like an ATC. This ATC has 2 separate entrances. Basically every design point of this map has fixed all of my issues with current Verdansk. And people were using me pointing out that it has 216 POIs versus the 400 of Verdansk, because that means it's smaller or a bad thing. No, that's literally what everybody has been complaining about. There's too many buildings in Verdansk. It's okay to have buildings, but they need to be spaced out with the design and flow in mind. When you go to downtown, there's no design or flow. You're just looking everywhere, expecting to get shot. This game's not going to be like that. And I really, really do think that this map will be twice the map that Verdansk was, and that's no slight on Verdansk. What do you guys think about those thoughts?
I think that was a great point as far as like verticality in the center and also more openness and how people are going to be forced from the outskirts inward most of the matches, because usually circle is going to end up somewhere around the middle. So yeah, that's a great point for sure.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I feel like every BR like should, I know that all the circles are randomized, but like imagine if almost every single circle, not almost, but they pushed you towards one of those central regions to start. You would have people who landed at the volcano or the peak with not as good of loot as you, but they would have the height advantage on you with less cover. Like that's an interesting dynamic and a trade-off that people are going to have to make. Whereas right now, if you really, really just want to be a rat in camp, go loot Nakatomi and go to the top. Nobody's coming to get you. You can hang out there all game.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I'll be really curious to see how the volcano plays into all this, as well as I know you guys probably saw a couple of semi-viral tweets that went out about how in the trailer they said that you'll be able to climb rock formations. They said it super casually, but yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but hopefully we can traverse some of the terrain around this map. I know Ace, you also said that you had definitely seen that a lot of these buildings didn't seem to have attics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just based on the images we've seen so far,
right,
at least.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. What we haven't learned either is like how destructible these buildings are either.
Oh, I didn't even think. Do you guys think that there's gonna?
Yes,
I guess there has to be. Yeah, there's going to be destructible environments in Warzone.
Yeah, they're 100%.
I don't know about that one. Okay.
No, they're there because if you go and look at the shipment that I tweeted about, that's also on the Caldera map. It's more like Modern Warfare 19 shipment, but if you look, the boxes that have the vertical boxes, like Vanguard shipment, they're made out of wood. They're going to be able to be blown up. And there's also shutters and all that other stuff. Yeah, and they've also said that it's going to this engine. I can't see them adding destruction to COD and then not putting it into some of the more campy areas. Another thing they added is to where we can send up one of these new gas canisters up a zip line if somebody's camping high ground.
Did see that.
So I do think that, like, while some people think destructive environments are useless, it's actually very, very good that the most power positions in the game, their cover isn't real cover. You know, it's destructible. You can take it away if you want.
Oh gosh. Okay, maybe I'm a moron, and maybe you guys have more information than I do. Did they talk about whether, I'm assuming our kill streaks that we buy out of the buy stations are going to be the Vanguard kill streaks, right?
They haven't told us yet. I think we can. I have my list of questions that here, I'll link it to you guys. That way you can just pull it up, and then that'll be what we close out on when we finish talking about Warzone.
Send it to Discord.
Yeah. I'm gonna look for that link real quick. But are there any other concerns you guys have about this map? You know, just looking at it at a glance.
Nope. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm excited to hop in and just see what it ends up playing like.
Yeah. I think I think the only thing that I'm assuming they've looked at this. I mean, if you're looking at the map and you talked about how a lot of the major POIs and different areas that seem to have the most loot are kind of around the edges of the map, and then you're trying to force people to center. I mean, you know, this fields area is a big question mark for me, right? Like, this has to be executed very well, or this is going to be a huge patch of like, oh god, we have to traverse through the wide open for days and days. And it seems like there's plenty of roads and buildings along the way that shouldn't be too big of an issue. But like, you know, do we compare K to like the farmland that we currently have? If so, I would hate to have farmland center of the map. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you seen the screenshots of that field? It is wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm most worried about in terms of rotations for like comp scene.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap up, we originally started off and then got on a bit of a tangent because I had so much I wanted to say about why I love the design of this map just off first glance. Let's talk about some of the other things that are changing. We've spoken about loadouts. Something that's really cool that's changing, but that probably won't affect gameplay very much, is if you throw a fire, like a thermite or a Molotov, into the water, it will create a smoke effect, similar to a smoke grenade in this game. Woo! Science rocks, dude. That actually sounds pretty cool to me. I'm not sure like where that will come into play in actual combat situations, but I mean, I guess if you have a massive brain, you could, you know, find a water source and throw it down. On top of that, there are some other changes that are coming as well. Most notably, changes to the gas mask. The gas mask, they didn't tell us exactly what they're doing to it, just FYI, but they did say that it will interrupt your actions less, and something along the lines of it won't be as like cumbersome to like take on and off, but that the advantage will always still be to people who are inside the zone, not people in the gas. So it's supposed to have a bit of a disadvantage to it, but that's a very welcome change. And then I also mentioned that there's these new gas canisters that you're going to be able to either throw or shoot at people, and it requires two hands to hold, so you're not going to be able to have your weapon out, but you'll also be able to clip that onto a zip line and send it up a building at campers. I think that's a good change as well. Most people don't know, but those actually popped up in Warzone around August of last year for about a week, and then they removed them. So it's good to see that those are back. But I'm going to get into the real nitty gritty of what's changed, and then I'm going to ask you thoughts on this. And then there's really not much else.
Yeah, I've got a couple final thoughts on some stuff, but go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. Dead silence, stun grenades, heartbeat sensors, dual wielded melee weapons like the Kali sticks and the Psy, and the melee, which is one of the most infamous things people hate about Warzone, have all been nerfed for Warzone Pacific. They haven't detailed exactly how they're going to nerf them. Stopping power rounds have been completely removed. Hallelujah, never belonged in the game in the first place. And another change is that they are also buffing some of the lethals and tacticals that weren't currently serving a good position. One of the ones that's concerning to me is they said they're going to buff the snapshot grenade, which currently still shows people through walls. So I don't really agree with that one, but they also said they're going to buff the decoy grenade. So instead of just being a decoy, it'll shoot out rubber pellets and it'll make people think they're getting shot. It'll do very minimal damage, but what do you guys think about some of those?
I'm glad they're at least trying new things and trying to mix things up a little bit when it comes to equipment, because that's one thing that just really hasn't changed since Warzone launched, really, and I feel like it's just kind of remained stale the whole way through. I was hoping they would have got rid of heartbeat sensors completely, but interested to see what they do with the nerf at least. I don't know. I'm just excited for something different at least.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what that heartbeat sensor nerf is. Most certainly.
I mean, whenever you talk about like metas, right? Like, and people, buffing and nerfing weapons along the way, like the whole goal of them doing that is trying to balance the game as much as possible and provide the, I don't know if it's maximum amount, but at least have some choices along the way for what guns and equipment you can use. And, as of late, specifically in Warzone, there's really not that many choices of equipment, and so things like decoys and snapshots are hardly ever used. So of course, the balancing passes that they're doing on weapons, putting that into equipment makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that. And I just want to let's just speculate for 2 seconds about what we think the heartbeat sensor nerf is going to be, because I think it'd be really cool. And I know for a fact that they've seen and have heard our feedback about possible ways to nerf it. And I know that one of the most common ones I've seen is people think it should have a battery life.
Like charges on it?
Yeah.
Or that's interesting.
Yeah, what do you think?
That's what I want to see.
Yeah, you want to see that instead of just like a range reduction?
Yeah, well, when you compare it to all the other equipment, you get a stun grenade, you get to throw that once, and your stun's gone. And even though it usually results in a free kill, I don't know, it just doesn't seem balanced at a heartbeat sensor. You can use the same heartbeat sensor throughout the entire match with no trade-off, aside from the fact that you don't get another tactical. So I think a battery life or something along those lines would be best. And then, once it runs out, it's just gone, just as if you threw your stun grenade and you got to find another one. And then if they were to do that, I think they can keep the range the way they have it. That's totally fine if it's a limited use thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Most people don't even like put these 2 and 2 together, but it's literally one of my favorite things to find when I hot drop in Warzone with my squad is a heartbeat sensor. I have a free UAV at the start of the game. Like, there's no other thing that compares to that. Knowledge is the most important thing you can have in a battle royale, and no other tactical or lethal gives you the amount of knowledge that a heartbeat sensor does.
I would like to see that change. What I expect they will do is either just a range reduction, or something that would be interesting would actually be putting it on like a refresh timer. So once you use it once, it would look like almost like you have restock on the perk. There'd be like a small little timer over it, and then you could use it again after 20 seconds or something like that. That would certainly be a nerf to it, rather than somebody just sitting with it out and heartbeat monitoring everyone. I don't know how long that would need to be to make it a reasonable nerf. Like, if it's 5 seconds, that's not going to do anything, but if it's like 20 or 30 seconds, that certainly changes the way you would use them.
I agree with what Nuo says in chat as well. This was something that I brought up previously. I don't like that you can quickly pull out the heartbeat and listen for the beep. You should have to wait for it to scan. I fully agree. It's ridiculous you can pull out this crutch tactical for 0.2 seconds, and the audio cue on it literally is directional. So you can hear, you just put it up, and then you can hear how close or how far away somebody is if you've used it enough. That's another thing that I hope that they for sure nerf about it. And I forgot one more thing that's different between Warzone Pacific and Caldera is that you can't swim in Warzone Pacific, everyone, but there are lagoons and areas of water that you can get in. You can't go prone in them, but if you crouch in them, your footsteps will be hidden from people with tracker, and you'll effectively have cold-blooded. And I think that could create for some interesting situations in like high tier gameplay, like fights, like, if somebody has some type of a kill streak that you need to get away from and you don't have cold-blooded and you see some water nearby, go crouch.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some bits and pieces of strategies that we'll see how it works out going into the future. But overall, definitely some good changes, something that I'm excited to explore and see what the competitive world does with them as well. Like I said, I think there'll be a bit of superstition for people playing the game any differently, but as people discover new strategies, different POIs, different things like that, I think we'll see a big kind of meta shift of the way the game is even played, which hopefully is for the better. I'm assuming will be for the better, besides maybe some buy station camping. But
yeah, you were mentioning you had some closing thoughts. Did you get those out? I mean,
no,
we have like
so
2 more things.
So I think like this is kind of stepping away from Warzone. I think we talked a lot about it. While we have Xclusive Ace here, I want to ask Ace a couple more questions for you about kind of your future content creation. This will kind of take us to the end of the episode, but I know you were talking about before the episode started, like, hey, I love to do multiplayer. I'll probably have to do some Warzone this year, which isn't the end of the world, but not necessarily what you prefer. Well, I would love to just kind of go back to a new conversation of what do you think it will take for the Call of Duty multiplayer scene to continue to grow and not be kind of engulfed by Warzone? Like, what were some things that you would love to see changed or fixed or added, or complete something new that you'd been brainstorming that you think multiplayer that would help multiplayer kind of rise out of this sort of decline that we at least perceive is happening?
That's a really complicated question. I'd probably have to sit down for a while to think of like extremely solid answers to that.
Sure.
I do think they should probably look back to franchise history a little bit and pick up on the things that were really successful, but for whatever reason they just stopped including into the game. Big one is score streaks. That should be an absolute staple every year. I don't know why they keep going back to kill streaks or trying something new with that. I think score streak was just the best option that encourages the most objective play and movement. I know that's not like a massive high level thing that's going to save multiplayer, but just like little things like that, I think a lot of them could add up into bringing people back into the game. What was the other thing? Something popped into my head, but I just forgot it.
Well, this
one of the biggest things is disbanding lobbies.
Yes.
I know their data or somebody's data somewhere has shown that that's beneficial for the game, and it seems like a lot of games are going in that direction. I don't get it. I really don't understand how that's a good thing for the game long term, because it just eliminated the social aspect of it. Like, there used to be so much talk about Call of Duty lobbies and all the memes around Call of Duty lobbies and how people wouldn't survive 2 seconds in a Modern Warfare 2 lobby and everything like that. Like, that whole element of COD is just gone now because I don't know, because some data somewhere says that that's not healthy for the game. But I think long term it is very healthy for the game, and that's how you develop relationships and rivalries, and I don't know, you get a more rewarding gaming session, I think, out of that as well when you're sticking with lobbies. But as far as like really big picture things, like I said, I'd have to sit down for probably hours and hours to figure out like what could help in that area, and it's just not something I have been brainstorming recently. So yeah.
To add to your point about the multiplayer lobbies disbanding, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's no way to build a storyline when you're getting your lobby disbanded every time. People would be much more inclined to watch one of the old school MW2 lobbies of my team of 6 versus some other randomly queued team of 6 playing each other 18 games in a row and absolutely talking shit in between every game. People love that stuff. Nowadays, you're lucky if you ever see the same person twice.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. I mean, I want to be very clear, of course, like some of the things that people said back in the day is not what we're saying should come back. It's more of the competitive rivalries that can happen when the lobbies don't disband. I totally agree. I mean, I was actually listening into some going back to the CDL conversation we had mentioned. I was having some conversations and listening to some conversations about people talking about rivalries even in CDL, and how, fines and things that were happening between players because of things they were saying about the game or about each other or whatever, is dissuading players from having rivalries. And if anything, rivalries will propel CDL forward and make it more worth watching, because in the CDL standpoint, I mean, you basically have this new dynasty that is FaZe, but then you have pretty much, majority of the fan base, whether people like it or not, is just Optic Green Wall because of the history and Scump and this whole like dynasty thing that has been around Optic for so long. And this new FaZe team came in and just absolutely annihilated, but it's still Optic. Of course, there's some FaZe people out there that are gonna get really mad at me about that, but when you like, even at Champs, like I was at Champs, and even at Champs, like when Optic wasn't playing, the room felt dead. And I'm hoping like we'll get back to more of this. And I think something that goes along with the question I was asking you, Ace, was like, even the public's response to Halo's release in comparison to Vanguard's release. People were excited, obviously, about Halo and its nostalgic value, and I'll be really curious to see what they say like a month from now. But like, just releasing a multiplayer game seemingly in a very clean state has revitalized this kind of multiplayer scene of Halo, and we've seen a lot of people get really excited about it. I mean, the question really becomes is like, if Vanguard was released at a more clean state when multiplayer was released and allowed for, a pro league that dropped almost immediately after, the game was launched, with, a game moving really cleanly and quickly, and like the way the maps and rotations work are clean and quick, and there's not a lot of this debate of like, all these issues. I don't know. It seemed like Halo did it right this time around. Of course, they had 7 years to plan it, so it's a little bit different than releasing a COD every single year. But I wonder if that could have, and this is more of a conjecture, but I wonder if that could have helped out, like CDL being a lot more integrated into the release of multiplayer.
I think another issue with CDL right now is that they absolutely are not. So I'm a big college football fan, and one of the biggest like landmarks of what a good team is and what a good team isn't, it's called player and team development. So you'll get like a bad team, but over the years you'll make them better and better. And currently, right now, the NBA has like a G League, MLB has Farm League. The version of that for CDL is called Challengers, and buddy, that thing is kind of not in a good state right now. Last year, like half of the time I saw anyone talk about it was because a guy was caught cheating in the middle of a Challengers tournament. So I think they need to build from the ground up. They need to have like some type of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. They need to be able to have a cycle that they are in control of, being able to produce better and better players. Because right now, when Scump retires, it is done. There's no hype for anybody new coming up from Challengers. There's no nothing. I'm really worried about the CDL, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a whole like long hour-long rabbit hole we could all three go down. But I just thought I'd bring that up towards the end of just, I don't know, especially from like your perspective, Ace, of like the multiplayer scene. Like I'm a bit worried, you know?
Yeah, me too.
I think one of the last things I want to ask you, Ace, before we end up wrapping up today is, we talked a little bit before the podcast started, and you said you were a little bit worried because, I mean, it's almost obvious that the guns will not originally launch in Vanguard with the same balancing and stats that they have. Something that I've been looking into is that when Modern Warfare launched Warzone, all of those guns actually had the same stats pretty much, which was actually kind of cool. That maybe is a possibility because of this engine, but I don't know. Previously, they had said that they wanted to raise the TTK to at least like 450 to between 650 to put the game in a better state. Some of these Vanguard guns can kill incredibly fast. So I just wanted to know, based on the guns that you've tested, and if you guys haven't yet, go subscribe to Ace. He does gun guides for all the best gun builds. I mean, he's got a M1911 and a Rat that are 2 shots from any distance. All types of things that can just be crazy broken in that game. But what do you think some of the best weapons will be on Caldera week 1, week 2, before people really start to hone down on what the true meta is going to be?
Yeah, this is like pure speculation, and I was going to make a video about this, and I decided against it because it is so speculative. Because like if you look at the STG right now in Warzone compared to the stats of the STG in Vanguard, they're totally different. It's not the same gun at all, and I suspect we'll be saying the same thing. But like if I had to guess, assuming the guns are going to be carrying a lot of their at least handling and accuracy sort of stats with them, I would think some of the guns to look out for would be NZ41 as far as that like high damage hitter, Automaton for that like M13 replacement, basically just super accurate, tons of rounds down range. And then I don't even know, probably for sniper support would be looking at the Volkssturmgewehr or the AS44, but depends on if they're going to be adding aim down sight spread as well, because that could really hold things back. But yeah, it's all up in the air right now. We also don't know what the attachments are going to be doing. So are we actually going to have like barrels that boost our damage? Because I don't think Warzone currently has that. From what I remember, at least, you don't have things that are just straight damage boosts. So yeah, it's completely up in the air right now. I have no idea what's going to happen when it comes to that. But those are a few of the guns, at least, that I'm making sure that I'm leveling up and getting ready to go, just in case.
I'm not sure exactly how. I know that you can put the different ammo types. I mean, you could already do that with Modern Warfare guns. I'm not, by ammo types, I don't mean incendiary rounds, FMJ, or all that. None of that's in there right now, at least. But like the 30 round Russian mags and all that, I do believe you can put those on there. I don't know if they directly increase your damage like they do. That's something that's going to be very, very interesting to see. But one thing to say for sure is on there is Vital. Vital is on one of those STG blueprints that we have in Warzone at the moment. And currently, I believe, I don't know when the last time it was tested, but it currently just isn't on. Like, it doesn't do anything. I don't think that it was meant to be on yet. But it's going to be very interesting to see, like, something I'm really, really, really interested to see is, like, Gung Ho is one of the strongest proficiencies in all of Vanguard. You completely eliminate sprint to fire time, allowing you to effectively make a laser accurate SMG that also has ridiculously fast, ability to aim down sight on somebody while doing more damage to them. those could be incredibly strong. You listed off some ARs. You didn't really list off any SMGs. What would be your like sleepers there?
It's tricky to tell. A lot of that has to do with magazine capacities. I'm curious to see if they're going to do what they did with Cold War with some of the guns, where if a gun doesn't have a really high magazine capacity in multiplayer or magazine attachment, then they'll just introduce one into Warzone and like rename it. But I don't know. Maybe like MP40 Thompson. Those are the two that just pop into the top of my head. But I have no idea.
Yeah, I see why you say that. Ammo capacity.
A lot of conjecture. Because we have no idea how it's going to be implemented. That makes a lot of sense. Well, hey, I know a lot of people are going to ask basically that exact question. What guns should I be leveling? Because I feel like that's probably all of your YouTube comments as well as everybody else's social media comments. I think I even get that. And like, I don't play Vanguard hardly at all comparatively. So like, it's everybody's forefront of their mind is like, what guns do I need to be using going into Caldera? And only time will tell. But we're going to have a very, very short Q&A question. I'm just going to take like 3, 4, 5 questions for Ace. If you have a question for Ace in particular, if you're in the Twitter space, come over to the YouTube really quickly. It's just youtube.com/c/Modern Warzone Weekly. Very simple. Come over here and type your question in the YouTube chat. We'll take like 3, 4, 5 questions depending on who has questions. If you're asking about guns, we'll give you a conjecture answer, but this is for Ace if you have a question for him. And then other than that, Ace, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to get this together for a while. It's nice that it finally came together and managed to do it.
It's all good. You're a busy man. You do great work for the community. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still shocked you didn't mention the bar though. I thought you definitely mentioned the bar as something you were looking at.
I don't think the damage mags are going to do what we think they're doing.
True.
And if we're equalizing damage, or at least roughly equalizing number of shots to kill, the NZ41 is going to be the superior option, I think.
My favorite AR, by the way.
Hitter. Yeah.
Love that gun.
Yeah, I really enjoy it as well.
Okay, so this doesn't even count as a question, but I'm going to throw it at you anyways. Ace, what do you know about console FOV? Is it coming?
I know exactly what you guys know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll probably find out day before or day of the update. My suspicion is that we won't be seeing it with the update just because they haven't mentioned it in the blog post. And I feel like that's something they would have wanted to advertise early on and keep building up that hype. Or maybe they're trying to save that hype so they can spread it out up until the update. My guess is as good as yours, basically.
Before we start reading off questions to Ace, let me just get across some things that nobody knows the answer to and that nobody has been given the answer to. I made a little list of them on Twitter. We do not know whether we're getting a new leaderboard in the stat reset for the Pacific or if they're going to archive the old Verdansk stats. We don't know that. We don't know if there will be an FOV slider for consoles, period, not next gen or current gen. We don't know if there will be a next gen console update. We still do not know which application Vanguard will, or Warzone Pacific will launch from. Will it be its own application separate from Modern Warfare and Vanguard? Will it be in Vanguard? Will it be in Modern Warfare still? We don't know. We don't know the movement mechanics, whether there's going to be a tactical sprint delay, which there currently is in Vanguard, or if the footstep audio will be transferring to Vanguard. We do know that it will be transferring to the Vanguard's engine, which is an updated version of Modern Warfare 2019's. We don't know how attachments will work with old guns, whether they'll be buffed to be able to have up to 8 attachments, how some of the redacted weapons work. We don't know what's going to be in the buy stations. We do know Rebirth Island's returning. We don't know what the nerfs to dead silence and heartbeat sensors are. We don't know what the player count is. We don't know the Season 1 gulag, and we don't know if you can climb rocks or not. So any other question than that is fair game.
I love it, Doug. Thanks for giving us all that info. I guess, Ace, this is a really general question that I like. Ace, just straight up, what is your current favorite thing about Vanguard?
Ooh.
Probably the volume of content. Especially when I'm thinking over like the past several years of COD, it's so refreshing to just have that many maps to play on, that many guns to be using, and also all the amazing amount of configuration we have with the guns. Like each gun can be like 3 or 4 different guns. It can perform like 3 or 4 completely different guns. So yeah, just the sheer volume of content right now is, I think, what I'm enjoying most.
It's overwhelming.
There is so much content, which is really good for people like Ace that makes content around that type of content with the guns and attachments and all that good stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. Okay, second will be this isn't too bad of a question. You had talked about guns. One of the types of guns that you didn't mention, again, this is all conjecture. We don't know how that will work, but what do you think about the Vanguard snipers in a general level? And then do you think there'll be some potential chance that they will compete with weapons like the Swiss and the Kar 98 from Modern Warfare?
Okay, as far as competing with those guns, I think it depends very largely on the amount of flinch that you experience when you're using them. That's really what sets those guns apart more than anything, even more than aim down sight time. It's the flinch. So that's really going to be a huge deciding factor. I think since it's classified as a sniper in Vanguard, if it gets carried over as a sniper in Warzone, they're likely going to have sniper level flinch, which is much higher, so they wouldn't compete very well. And then my thoughts about the sniper rifles within Vanguard, I think they're not in a great state. I think due to the time to kill being so fast when you start adding attachments to regular guns, the aim down sight time should be noticeably faster without any attachments on the sniper rifles for multiplayer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Next question, and this is again conjecture / just your opinion on the information you've seen. Doug and I have done a lot of talking with people like Maverick, who's come on stream and talked about the Ricochet anti-cheat and everything that's going to be implemented. But based on the information that you have and everything you've seen about the anti-cheat, do you think, number one, do you think it'll be effective? Number two, do you think it will be something that will kind of change the health of the Warzone landscape?
Based on what we know, which, yeah, it's just what they're giving us as far as information goes. On paper, they're doing everything right. It seems like they're taking all the proper steps and really doing it right. So I think it will, assuming it works out the way that they're saying it's going to work out. I'm pretty optimistic about it, but at the same time, we'll see. I don't know. Could be horrible.
Yeah, that's basically what everybody's saying. So it makes sense.
I hope they do, or else I'm getting a tattoo on my ass with the Warzone logo. It's gonna be horrible.
I forgot you said that. That's amazing.
I don't know why I did that. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me.
Well, I'm gonna take this moment. If you have, we'll take like 2 more questions. Type your question in the YouTube chat, and while we're waiting on those questions, as a reminder, please like the video that we're on right now. This live stream, it helps all the algorithm stuff, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We just broke over 500 subscribers on the YouTube channel, which we just started like fairly recently, and we're well over 10,000 downloads on the podcast as well. So thank you guys so much for all the support. We're gonna keep bringing on guests like Xclusive Ace. Ace, you'll probably be back on the podcast in the future, I'm sure. But we'll do like 2 more questions, and then we'll go from there and close it out today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in on Twitter as well as YouTube, or if you're listening to this online, Spotify, iTunes, all that good stuff, make sure you leave a review. Doug, do you see any questions you wanted to ask?
I see a couple I'm thinking about. People are kind of just asking surface level questions, but I'll ask Ace this one, just because he's gonna laugh when I ask it. Ace, Warzone Senior Citizen asks, Ace, would a Halo Battle Royale mode beat Warzone in popularity?
Probably not. I think it would be successful. I don't know how much audience crossover we would see, like how many Warzone players would transition into that. But yeah, I don't know if it would top Warzone in popularity, but I think it would definitely be very, very popular.
Yeah, I think it'd compete.
That's about it.
Yeah, I think we're all like, yo, we would love to. I think the other thing is like we would all love competition for Warzone at this point, right? Like Apex is there, that's great, but the more competition, the more they'll be kind of pushed to make changes and all that good stuff. So I will say we'll do this as the last question. We've talked a lot about Vanguard, we talked a lot about Warzone, and we don't know a lot, but I know you told us what your least favorite COD was. What do you think about the kind of announcement about what the next Call of Duty will be? With, I believe it's what, Modern Warzone or Modern Warfare 2022? Is that right?
It's not confirmed by anybody, but it's a safe
theoretically.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited for it because assuming it is Modern Warfare 2, which I think it's pretty obvious that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a very successful year for multiplayer again, which is great for business for me. I just really hope they learn some lessons from Modern Warfare 2019 to make it a bit more accessible for the people like myself that have been like extremely dedicated longtime Call of Duty fans, but just hated the gameplay of that game for like regular multiplayer. I hope I hope they make some compromises at least. I don't want the whole game catered to me or anything. I'm I'm fine with it still feeling like Modern Warfare 2019, but just a few key changes would go a long way into helping me enjoy the game. Like dead silence as a perk, that would be one massive thing that would immediately change my perception of the game.
Yep,
That's awesome.
for sure.
Well, it feels like a great place to end up. Excited about obviously new Call of Duties in the future, but we only time will tell how those will go. Hey, thank you to everyone for joining us on the podcast. It's been such a good episode. Excited to put this up on the YouTube for you guys. We'll edit it down so you can skip the little intro and the outro. It'll be all there on the Spotify's and all that good stuff tomorrow as well. Let's finish up. Who are you? Where can people find you? XclusiveAce, just kind of plug your socials to finish off the episode.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just TheXclusiveAce on everything: Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Live stream about 3 days a week on Twitch. Do that kind of for fun. YouTube channel is all about gun guides, breaking things down, getting into the nitty gritty of all the mechanics and the deep inner workings of the game, and in order to help you improve. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again for joining us. This has been an amazing episode. You guys know where to find Doug and I, GrandmasterGojj, and all major socials, and Modern Warzone / Doug Dagnabbit on all the socials. Modern Warzone is killing it, Doug, by the way. Can we get a little Twitter update? Where are you guys at right now?
Oh, you gonna gloat on me right now?
Yeah, bro. Are you serious? I'm pulling you up right now. Modern Warzone is up to 464,000 followers on Twitter, bro. You have been killing it. Keep up the good work. Excited about the future. Doug, any last words?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a little tidbit to make Ace smile. Based on everything that I've heard, I haven't tweeted about this, and I'm pretty much like, I'm not a leaker. Like, I'm done with all that type of stuff. I'm trying to be a good boy these days while also keeping the community informed. Everything I've heard is that Modern Warfare 2022 is being built, with the idea of fixing everything that people such as yourself hated about Modern Warfare 19 while building upon what they loved on it. They're really trying to make sure, as successful as the first iteration was when it rebooted the franchise, they really want this one to be even better. So I'm very excited for it, just like you are. I don't really have much to plug myself about. I do have to say I have some very, very, very exciting things that I've never been able to say before that I will be able to say soon, and probably about the next week. Big announcements coming for Modern Warzone. So if you guys don't have noties on, I'm finally getting to the places I've been wanting to be since we got things started almost 2 years ago. I wanted to thank Ace for coming on. As always, anytime I talk to him, you've been a great guy, my man. You've answered all my questions or anything I've ever needed. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I appreciate you being here, GOJJ.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a blast. And hey, that's all we've got. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, like the video, all that good stuff. We'll see you in the next one next week. Peace.
Peace. Like the video.